February 20th, 2018, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you are here in the Finger Lakes One TV studio, live with myself, Melissa Killeleagh, and Jim Sinacropi, and we've got a special guest here today. This is the Melissa Killeleagh Show, and I have to tell you, if you've got a message to share, the Finger Lakes One studio is a great place to be. I am a mom and a digital entrepreneur, and the message I really love to share is that there's so much amazing news out there if you look for it. So if you look for what uplifts and inspires you, you will find it. And today in the studio, we're going to talk about a few different things. I love to share women who make the world a better place, men who are making a difference in our community, different things out and about in our community, and then wrap up with a little bit of ideas and inspiration. So today in the studio, we are here with Debbie Morello. She is the owner and principal of Morello and Associates. Thank you, Debbie, so much for coming.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to share a little bit about why I decided to have Debbie come this particular episode. So it's February, this is the month of love, and one of the things I can tell you about Debbie is she is someone who totally throws herself into the work that she does. She's had quite a catalytic and active role in the community college world. She was an adjunct professor for me in graduate school, but she really taught me to love the work that I do. That was the beginning of that seed really being planted, right? Don't settle for just, showing up for the same life every year in a row and then calling it a life at the end of 75 years. Like, embrace the things that you love and do them well. And so she's here to share with us a little bit about her journey and some exciting news coming up. She'll have a book coming out in May. We're going to talk all about it. But Debbie, I would love if you would share with our viewers just a little bit about your background and what got you here.
Well, first of all, I'm so honored that you would say such wonderful things about me. A lot of times people think that women of a certain age are wiser and they bring wisdom to the table. But truly, it's the young, dynamic individuals such as yourself that are my mentors. So you have been such an inspiration to me with your vitality and your professionalism. The way you raise your child, everything about you is just an inspiration to me. So thank you for your kind words, but back at you.
Thank you.
My journey, I'm very, very, my history is as important to me as my future, but I'm a woman that lives in the future. I don't look back. It's just always forward. However, my ancestry is really important to me, and you can learn about me by knowing about my ancestors. It's kind of an interesting story. About in the mid-1960s, late 1960s, a doctor found out that there was a whole group of people in this little town in Pennsylvania known as Rosetta, Pennsylvania. And these are individuals that live these long lives, and they started doing research. I'll get to why this is significant to me. But they started doing research about the people that lived in this town. And even though they ate like sausage and lard, meatballs fried in lard, they weren't on the Mediterranean diet. They were eating like real Italians, lots of pasta and everything. They were drinking a lot of wine. They were exercising like normal individuals might exercise in that era. But what they found out when they did research over the course of 20 years is that the reason that they had longevity, they were healthier and lived longer than anyone in the outlying areas, actually anyone in the United States once the research was completed.
Wow.
Because they had social connections. And this is part of my history. My family came from that little area in Italy that transplanted to Pennsylvania. Now, we landed in New York State, but it was, and I remember as a kid, my mother and father bringing me to visit the relatives, and they'd let me have a little anisette in the coffee. We'd have some biscotti, but it was all about the socialization and caring. So I grew up even though I tend to be an introvert, I grew up in an environment of social connection. It was always about the relatives, the family, the friends. And I think maybe that's why you and I connected so well when you were a student, because relationships are critical to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I identify with that, also an introvert, but I love not only the connections, while being able to also share stories and share that ancestry and share, pass that along so that there's something to learn from that. But during my time at Binghamton University, where I met you, one of the most significant books I read was from Tom Sinclair, who was the director of our program at the time, and I know he's a very good friend of yours.
Love him.
And the book was Bowling Alone. Do you remember that?
No.
So this book was all about how, we're coming to a time in our society where some of these places where we build social capital were starting to come apart. In other words, like the glue that was holding all of us together was, starting to degrade a little bit. And so that's a question I come back to all the time, is how do we continuously create more community? How do we create more connections? And that is also another passion I know that we really, really share. Especially, we got together a couple months ago in the super cute town of Owego, New York. And had breakfast. And when you shared with me what you're doing with this book and the vision that you have for what this can do for people, it totally stole my heart. So I'd love if you'd share a little bit more about that too.
I'd love to. The title of the book is The Power of Friends at Work. And the concept behind the book is I wanted to talk about all of the things that don't get discussed in work relationships. Things like trust, loyalty, boundaries, relationships of all sorts, the things that kind of are behind the scenes that aren't necessarily addressed that frequently. So then I had a dilemma, because my goal was to write the book, kind of have that be my calling card, my brochure as it would be, to get in and do corporate training for companies so that I could help organizations and companies improve their work relationships and ultimately help people have a better quality of life. Plus, have a business at this stage of my life that has significance and meaning.
Yeah.
So I started writing the book, and I met with one of my friends who's a regional attorney for a large banking organization across the Northeast. And she said, you have to come and do training at my company or for my organization. And that night I went to bed and I thought, oh my God, I'm a fraud. How do you teach people trust? Right. I can write a book and I can talk about trust and give a lot of stories and say, do this, don't do this, do this. Like everyone that I interviewed said, I'd say, well, what does trust mean to you? And they'd say, it means that somebody has my back. I mean, everybody that I spoke to said I have my back. But how do you teach somebody to have somebody's back? Is it reliability? Yeah. But trust is something that you feel in your gut, too. So I started kind of looking at that. And after my friend had asked me to do the training for all these people, I thought, what am I going to do? And I tuned into something known as appreciative inquiry. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, but mostly from our conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, what it is basically is that words create worlds. And positivity, if you approach something in a positive way, you'll get back the same usually. And I have to tell you, it works for me. Not to manipulate people, not to do it that way, but to teach people that if you're positive, if you ask the right questions, not negative questions, but positive questions, if you're honest with people in the workplace and you start dealing with things from a place of expecting the best in others, ultimately that's the result that you get. And I found my answer in appreciative inquiry. So I've been able to experiment with it in my own life. For example, yesterday I needed some real complicated work to be done. I went into a store, and instead of saying, help me, or I have a problem, or this is a problem, I walked up to the clerk and said, I feel that you're going to be able to solve this for me. I need such and such. And she says, yes, I can do that. And it was kind of a complicated issue. And it's almost like if you approach people positively and you create an environment where people want to work together, trust is a byproduct.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting. We have a mutual friend and colleague, Gwen Weber-McLeod, and this is a topic that she frequently discusses and trains on. And I've learned so much. Stephen Covey has a book about trust, the speed of trust. Yeah. And that was really eye-opening for me as well, because that is that X factor, right? That creates a lot of that glue. So this is so interesting to me because it kind of parallels what we see going on in psychology in terms of taking the strength-based approach.
Yes.
To how we work with human beings, right? Like for so many years, it was like, okay, let's take an assessment of what you're good at, what you're bad at, and let's help you get better at the things you're not so good at. But the reality is that, if we're working in the deficit all the time,
right,
we're not appreciating the things that we can build upon. And so it kind of parallels that. So here's what I love to know. What are some of the things that you feel are the strengths that you've embodied in your life that have gotten you here?
Okay. I can tell you that because, as you move on in life, you kind of, those things start sifting out, the things that you're good at, the things that you're not as good at. I come from a Judeo-Christian background, and I always wanted to have a singing ministry or a healing ministry. And I thought, if I could only heal people, that would be great. Or, how I would love to sing. Well, I have a terrible singing voice. I even mouth the words a lot so people don't even have to hear it when they're next to me. And what I did find out in the course of my life is that people would say to me, after I've been with you, I always feel good. Or, you make me feel really good. And then I found out there was something called the gift of exhortation, the gift of lifting people up, and it's known as a spiritual gift. And I thought, I have that. I don't know why. It's a gift. It's just like being able to sing or heal or play the piano or do whatever. And I don't even have to cultivate it because it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very grateful for that gift.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's helped give me momentum throughout my life. And that's a big part of what I live for, is to use that gift accordingly.
That's incredible.
I think you have it too. I do. I think that's why we're kindred spirits. One of the things I talk about in my group a lot, or in my book a lot, is about the people that you hang with. And they say you're the sum total of your 5 best friends.
Yeah.
You're also the sum total of your 5 last posts, or what do they call it? Your 5 last tweets, or your 5 last mentions to others. But I think that what I have found out in my whole career is that people like to hang out with people that are like them. So complainers love to hang out with complainers. And I believe
Misery
that
loves company.
Yeah, that people, like, this is why Gwen is your friend and my friend, and people that see her show will know that she brings energy into a room. She brings vitality. She very rarely, you'll never hear her complain. It's always looking positive, looking upwards.
Yeah, always lifting people up. Yeah. So who are your influences? Like, who are the people who have really lifted you up in your life? I mean, I know that, from conversation, you and I are a lot alike in that it could be, every day. It could be the mailman. It could be whomever, like, in any given moment. But we have those really special people who've been, mentors, role models, and inspiration to us. So who would a few of those people be for you?
Okay, it started when I was really young. I fell in love with Helen Keller. I couldn't comprehend that you could be blind and deaf and still survive.
Yeah.
So I would read everything about Helen Keller. I was a little over the top with it, but I was very curious about that. Curiosity plays such a big part in the desire to have role models. Then I fell in love with Anne Frank when I read the Diary of Anne Frank, and I tried to envision what it must have been like for her. And many years later, I was able to go to the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam and kind of see firsthand where she was and so forth. But she was another individual that I looked up to when I was a young teenager. And then I had a nun, Sister Mary Matthew Mahar, who was at all my parties. And I'm telling you, parties in the 70s weren't quite, well, maybe they were like parties today, but she was there. And she was a tremendous influence because of her desire and hunger for education. So over time, it's evolved. And now I don't watch television at night, very rarely. I'm kind of a videocast junkie. I love Lewis Howes, Chase Jarvis, Jay Arafat, Elisa Nichols, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and you turned me on to Jennifer Kem, who I think is fabulous, from Hawaii.
Great.
So these are I probably listen to a videocast every morning when I get up and take my shower. I'm doing my hair. I listen to one in the morning, and at night I listen to. Today it was Jay Sheedy, he was a monk, and he told his story about leaving the monastery and what his life evolved to be. So I will never run out of heroes and heroines.
I agree. And that's one thing I talk about often when I'm starting the show is, to me, the people I bring on the show are my everyday heroes, right? Mm-hmm. The people who are like walking the streets and doing the work and changing the world, like one person, one story, one day at a time. Lewis Howes is an interesting character. He wrote the book, The School of Greatness.
Right.
And that was life-changing for me. What I see there, which, the audience can take away is like you have the power at any given moment in your life to change the trajectory, right? It's like just make the decision and do the work, right? And he's got his like list of principles, but he gives so many examples of how we are so much more than our circumstances. Yeah. And so that's really like looking back at some of these influences. You're looking at Helen Keller and you're looking at Anne Frank. These are incredible, inspiring human beings who knew that they were more than their circumstances. They were more than, what was afflicting them at the time, right? They had that like depth of human spirit. So
it's interesting that you'd mentioned Lewis Howes because he's probably at the top of my list. He really struggled throughout school. Mm-hmm. He lost his football career by being injured immediately. Mm-hmm. Life didn't come easy for him. His brother was in prison, and people were told not to hang out with him. But if you look at his video cast, he has on like every superstar. Yeah. So I was at a meeting recently, last week actually, in Asheville, and people were saying, what do you do in your spare time? And I said, I'm like an addict of video casts, and I love Lewis Howes. And this man that was there said, Lewis Howes went to the school where I teach, and he comes and visits the students. Oh, and he talked about how he goes and he talks to all the students, and because it was his alma mater, this is it was an extended elementary or high school. Yeah. That he kind of goes from person to person and talks to them and has he's totally humble. Yeah. And that's the way he comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right. He does have like so many great people come across the table, right?
Amazing.
The interviews are incredible. One of the things that struck me when I was reading his book is like this idea of him like sort of laying there on the couch. He's lying there and he's just totally, what's going to happen next? What am I going to do with my life? And how many people have been there at some point?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, that's Definitely. A reality. So to make the decision at a certain point, enough is enough. Like, right. For me, I say to myself, like, pull up your big girl panties and, like, let's get out there and do this thing. So, yeah, I so appreciate the work that he's doing. So tell us, Debbie, this is one of the most important questions I love to ask. What do you want to look back and know that your legacy has been in this life?
Another thing you and I can relate to. I have two sons, Michael and Vincent. And I think about legacy a lot now because when I left my last job, they had a party and everybody was talking about their legacy along the way. And I looked out into the crowd and my sisters were there and my brother-in-law, my nieces, and my son was there, one of my two sons. And I said, that's my legacy. I've been blessed with a beautiful family, and even though I love to help other people, I care about other people, I want my sons to, and they're grown, I want them to be good, caring, loving people. Yeah. And my legacy is that maybe in some small way I can influence them to carry on what I believe in. And what I believe in is spiritual and social connection.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I've seen that in them, which makes me really happy and proud. I think you've already seen it in Jack.
Yeah, I absolutely have. At almost 2 years old now, it's incredible. But it's great to also have so many women in my life who have had these incredible careers, but have also been able to be incredible mothers, right? And so that's where the intersection is for me, is like being able to do both, right? That it doesn't have to be an either or. And if that touches one person out there, to remind one mother, one woman out there, like you can be both. You can have it all, right?
Yes,
you don't have to
absolutely.
Sacrifice in one, to have the other. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I wish if I could look back on it, I wish I had been maybe a little bit more fun. I had my kids really young, so I was always worried about having their shoes polished. In those days, they used to polish the white shoes that little toddlers wore. And I was worried about, having them be really great students and all of this. And now when I look back, I play with them now, like we go golfing and we have a great time now. Right. But I wish I'd been a little bit more chill along the way.
Yeah, but you know what? If they can have fun now, then you did something right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm so
Thank
glad we
you.
had the time today.
This is great.
So your book comes out in May.
May, yes.
Okay,
In fact, it's in the final edits, and I've been so blessed. I have 4 friends that have been editing, and a couple of them have written books themselves, and that's been great because it's not easy to write a book. I hope you have one in you that you're going to do. But
it's coming out.
I just get you, if I could give some advice to the readers or the watchers, if there are, people watching this, they have an interest in writing a book. It's a lot of work, but you have to do it every day. You have to get up, just write something, and don't worry about editing it. There are people that can do that. Strengths-based leadership. There are people that have that wonderful gift, and rely on those individuals.
Yeah, it's so great. Keep yourself in your own zone of genius, right? And let other people be in theirs. Yeah. Well, thank you. So for everyone watching today, this is Debbie Morello. She is the owner and principal of Morello & Associates. Stay tuned in May for her book coming out, The Power of Work Friendship.
Yes.
Yes. So excited because you will be able to call upon Debbie if you want to help create that kind of rich, dynamic culture in your own organization. So stay tuned for the book and get ready for great things. Next, we have a man who has made a really significant difference in my life and in many, many lives. This is Dr. Mike Vorozilchak, and he comes to us from Finger Lakes Family Chiropractic. And interesting thing about Dr. Mike, you'll hear a little bit more about my journey, so I won't share it now, but when he came into my life, this was the beginning of sort of like breaking my heart wide open and realizing that it was time to embrace the dreams and the passions inside. And so for those of you who have listened to my journey, there is a point at which we have to let go of some of these external drivers, like following what society tells us is the right thing to do and figuring out what your heart is calling you for. So here he is, Dr. Mike from Finger Lakes Family Chiropractic. All right, everybody, we're here today with Dr. Mike from Finger Lakes Family Chiropractic. Mike has a special message to share with you today, and he really has played also a very special role in my life. About almost 4 years ago now, and connected as a patient, and so in the vein of talking about all things self-care, self-love for the month of February. My journey with chiropractic care began with Dr. Mike and this sort of transition into really freeing up the energy, like around the hearts and around the lungs, because of some tension and some misalignment that was kind of keeping things all tied up. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Dr. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate you being part of today's segment on men who make a difference in our community. I've always admired the work that you do to really spread your health and wellness message to the larger community, not just your clients and practitioners, right? So I would love for you to share a little bit with our viewers about your background and your practice.
That's a long story, but thank you for the opportunity to share. And it's nice to be able to turn the tables because I interviewed you a few years back, and that was one of our most popular teleconferences that we did. And it's really cool to, go side by side and share each other's journey here.
Awesome. Yes, it is.
We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in practice, which blows my mind about how quickly it went by. And it, looking back, we've had almost like 2,000 people through our doors that we've helped, and we've had people that have come in just for like a short term. I want to get out of pain, just help me get some relief. And other people that have come in and had their lives transformed. They've done everything else. They've been to every doctor, every specialist, tried every pill. And we were kind of their last hope. And I love those cases because I feel very confident helping those people, and to see, to see that journey to transform people's health and transform their life and introduce them to a new way of thinking about health and wellness and how their body works and what their body is capable of. So when you talk about energy being released, it's really like that's where science is taking us now, and helping us better understand how to maximize that innate intelligence that's within us. Our body is born to be healthy, and we're trying now to move away from symptom suppression and disease fighting model. There's preventing death is down here, but optimizing life is over here. And that's where we try to focus on, all right, let's move you in this direction. When we focus on what we don't want, that tends to show up in our lives. Let's focus on what we do want, and let's honor our body, and let's find strategies and ways to optimize that.
I love it. And, it goes along with something I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is this metaphor of, and I'm thinking about this more in like mental health and therapy and psychotherapy and this kind of thing. But we talk about like health or well-being being this stream, that we're sort of swimming in, right? And the old model is like, you're swimming along and you bump up against a rock and you spend all this time like looking at the rock. Like, what is the rock doing here? Why am I stuck? How can I move this rock? When in reality, like, you're still in health. Just like you were saying, like, our bodies are designed to be that way, right? So all we have to do is like move over and keep going. Like, we're in that stream. We're in the right place. And sometimes we focus our energy on the wrong things, right? Because focusing on the rock and how we can move it and why it's there is not going to change the fact that it's there, right? Yeah. So, so for me, like if I was born with a fear of heights, for example, like, maybe that's something I want to overcome. Maybe it's something I don't want to overcome. Maybe it's from 7 lifetimes ago and it's just there and it's not something that is meant to, to really focus on, but I could go do things that challenge that. I could work with like, other areas of my life where I want to expand my comfort zone, right? So it can push that in a little bit different direction. So thank you for sharing that model, Mike, because I agree with you. Like, we're born to be healthy. In my business, I'm constantly coaching people around the idea that most people don't understand how amazing their bodies are meant to like feel, right? And that was something I loved about coming to your practice, is that you didn't come from simply this place of like, okay, you've got some pain, come fix it. You came from this place of, how do I help this person create optimal health, right? And like optimal well-being. So that's great. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you decided to get into chiropractic. Like, where did that inspiration come from, and how did you get here?
Well, it's funny. My wife and I both went to Ithaca College. That's the diplomas behind us.
High five, alma mater.
And I I studied exercise science. At first, I wanted to be an athletic trainer, and then I switched gears to more just broadly looking at exercise as a staple of helping people achieve wellness. And I thought I would use that as a springboard to go to medical school. And my dad was a pharmacist, so he got me connected with a local hospital back home. And I spent my summers during college interning and working in a cardiology department. So I would help do the stress test. I'd be the guy like putting the EKG leads on and taking people's blood pressure as they're bouncing up and down on the treadmill. And I learned a lot. And the one thing I took away from that was that I don't want to do that I don't want to be a hospital type of doctor. Like it was the care model was very reactive. And the practitioners that I were dealing with were very high stress. Like this is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So they were attached to their beavers there before cell phones. Many of them were on like their second or third marriage. They were working 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. Their relationship with their patients was very brief and very direct. It was like, all right, your heart sucks. You got to stop smoking, lose weight, take these pills, and come see me in a month. And the patient would be like, looking to me for guidance. And I'm like, well, I'm just a college kid. I'm just trying to learn here. But, here's what I know about exercise, nutrition, trying to steer them in that direction. It wasn't until I was getting ready to graduate that a friend told me, hey, I'm going to chiropractic school in the fall. You should check it out. And I went online and read all about the history of chiropractic and the philosophy of chiropractic. And I was like up all night, like, this is amazing. How come I never heard of this? I thought it was all about neck pain and back pain and headaches, but it's really this holistic healing art that talks about, the idea that life is the expression of intelligence through matter. So our body, our degree of health is about how well we're expressing that intelligence, and health and our vitality on any given moment in time is expressed to the degree that we're lacking interference. So interference suppresses health, removing interferences restores and optimizes health. And I learned that the spine, through its anatomical connection to the nervous system, is one of those biggest things through traumas, injuries, stressors, that interferes with the nervous system, which controls everything in the body, working at 100% and expressing 100% health. So I'm like, wow, I could help people live better by removing these interferences, restoring integrity to the spine, to the nervous system. And the effects of it are so far reaching. You know, people tell me all the time, they come in for one problem, they're looking for pain relief or, you know, to just feel better overall. And so many other things go away. And it's not because we're treating those conditions, it's just that we're helping their body work better by removing the stress from the nervous system. And it's like a ripple effect through the whole body. So that the philosophy and the science and the art of chiropractic just really resonate with me in the practice. Just how powerful it really is. And I'm passionate about introducing that to people and helping them experience that shift and what that could do for their life.
That's amazing, Mike. Yeah. And I mean, I can echo, you know, that philosophy with my own testimony coming in to see you. I remember one of the greatest challenges I had. So I was completely misaligned. I had like the C-shaped spine from like how many years of driving like this with my standard car. And I remember, like, even just with my first adjustment, the amount of time that I spent working at a desk and sort of hunched over working on a computer really taught me to open this up. And that was really interesting for me, because here I was coming to you as a practiced yogi, right? Like I had been doing yoga for many years. And so I knew a lot about the spine and our health, but I didn't realize how misaligned I was, right? And then the other thing that happened was I had a lot of compression that was causing things like brain fog and headaches and little tiny nagging things that were never great enough to cause me to want to do something about them. I wasn't going to go to the doctor to talk about my headaches because I knew they would give me a pill, right? So I was doing yoga and I was doing meditation and I was doing all these other things hoping that it would help. But just like you said, you know, I came to you for one thing, but, you know, all these other things started to fall away as my health improved, which was wonderful. And, you know, and there I was, you know, months into care, and it was truly the beginning of the journey that allowed me to make the decision to walk away from my 9-to-5 and embrace living a full life, because it was the beginning of opening all of that up, right?
That's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Super incredible. So tell us a little bit, you've done a lot of programming around the community and just in your office to really raise awareness around health and wellness. I know that you did some great dinner programs for a while. I'm not sure if those are still going on or not. But I would love
They'll be coming back by popular demand this year.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
so talk about that a little bit.
So one of the things I'm passionate about is just sharing information. I like to use myself as the guinea pig, and you know, I'm always looking for life hacks and reading up about performance optimization and health optimization. And there's a lot of people that are doing experiments on themselves, you know, like what type of meal plan works best, what type of fitness strategy works best. So, you know, I've played around with it all, from burst training to intermittent fasting to, you know, paleo and ketogenic stuff. Like I love trying that stuff out, but then I also like sharing it with people and helping introduce people to concepts that they might not be aware of or might not be, you know, apt to try on their own. So we used to do a lot of in-house like workshops in our practice to just invite the community and our patients to come out and, you know, learn about nutrition, learn about stress, learn about how to increase their metabolism, how to improve their mindset, and just take all these concepts that are out there and dummy them down to a point where it's so simple. People are just, yeah, I can do that. I could make that happen. So we got away from it for the last few years. Family's taken a precedence in my life with 2 young boys, and I haven't been as active in the community doing those things, but we are actively looking at planning some dinner events and doing some things in the upcoming months. So I'll keep you posted for sure.
Fantastic. And I know everyone can go find you on Facebook, Finger Lakes Family Chiropractic, and follow your information there. But also anyone who has never been in to see Dr. Mike, you can find him on North Street in Geneva, which is absolutely wonderful. Even to come in and get a consultation, or, if there's any kind of, health issue that you're having that you think you could help with, reach out, because I was just so impressed, like I said, with the amount of things that had to do with my spine and my overall well-being that you were able to attend to without directly attending to it. It's absolutely amazing. So Mike, let's, for our viewers, wrap up with a little bit of inspiration. I would love for you to share just a bit about the legacy
I think
you want to leave.
That is something I've been pondering, and I guess it's a work in progress. I always thought I wanted to, change the community, change the world. Right now, I'm just working on changing myself. I love Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I want to be the best version of me and live a life that inspires other people to say, hey, keeping things simple, staying positive, and taking good care of yourself goes a long way to not only feeling fulfilled and abundant and happy, but then having that ripple effect on others. So at this point in my life, my legacy is just being the best me possible, and then however that transpires into my family and my practice and my community.
Yeah. Something tells me that will continue to expand and contract over time, just as it always does, right? Like there's seasons of our life that pull us back in. I know that myself from having my son almost 2 years ago now. But you're absolutely correct. Like we are where it all starts, right? Like we get to be that change. And one of the things that I've been meditating on this year, 2018, is the concept of being more and doing less. Right? So that we understand that our worth, our value, our legacy in this life has to do with who we are. Right. and how we interact with one another. It's not about the accomplishments. It's not about the accolades. It's truly like, how do you show up in any given situation? And that's one thing I can say for you, my friends, like you're always 100% present with the people who come through your door. So I thank you for the incredible work that you do in your practice and also in the community, even when you're focused on family, right? People need to see that too. They need to know that it's okay to focus our energy on the things that matter to us. So thanks for taking the time today. And if you have any last words you want to share with our viewers.
No, I mean, I invite all your listeners to, if they are seeking help, come into our office and get acquainted. The old adage of once you go to a chiropractor, you have to go forever. I think that's a barrier to some people, and trust me, you wouldn't want to be around me forever, and I probably won't be around me forever. But let's start a conversation. Let's see how I can help you, and let's work together to make your life better. And it's so cool to see the different transformations, and I appreciate you sharing your story, Melissa, about how that kickstarted your journey to where you are now. And I love being that springboard for people and helping them get out of the rut and helping them just get that spark to move in whatever direction they need to. So, it's we have a very open, friendly, easily accessible office. So come in, get acquainted, and see if we're a good fit for each other.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks, Melissa.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it, Dr. Mike from Finger Lakes Family Chiropractic, a man who's making a difference out in our community. And the last couple of things I want to share with you today, I want to talk a little bit about a few ideas out and about in our greater Finger Lakes community. This building, for example, that is the home to Finger Lakes One TV, fingerlakes1.com, is called the North Park Building. This is formerly Academy Square, so it's super fun to be here with Jim Sinacropi because he did go to 4th grade in this building. I love sharing that. But this space is opening up to offer itself for a lot more coming together in community events. The old gymnasium has been renovated. It's absolutely stunning. It can be rented out. I will put the link to be able to do that in the comments to the podcast, so you can check it out. It's an absolutely beautiful space to rent for anything from doing a book reading to a yoga class. Whatever is on your heart, please just come check out the space and see what you could do with it. Another thing that's happening is they are renovating the auditorium in this building, and I believe the seating capacity for that is somewhere between 400 and 600 people. So stay tuned, because this building is going to be holding some incredible community events. I am sure of it. Also, on March 8th in Geneva, New York, International Women's Day, we will be having a incredible celebration down at Bicentennial Park. What you'll be able to see is the work of women made visible, right? Because not everything we do always is. And we'll be decorating the park with clothesline and clothespins, and people can come down and share something that illustrates the work that you do as a woman in our community. Whether it's, bringing down a dish glove because you're washing dishes, or it's bringing down a manuscript from a book you've recently written. Whatever it is, we want to share the work of women in the world with our community. So please join us on March 8th in Geneva, New York for International Women's Day. And then finally, for a little bit of inspiration, these are the questions I want to leave you with. So it's February, it's the month of love. I shared with you a couple of people who really inspire me because they're out there living the things that they love in the world, as am I, by being here with you and helping share stories of the people that I admire and respect as the heroes in our everyday lives. So what I want to ask you is, what's in your heart? What is something that you can share that expresses the love that you have? It might be sharing a book with a friend or an idea with a colleague. It could be volunteering in your community. It might be the work that you already do. But if there's something in your heart that you haven't gotten out, find a way to express it, because the world needs it. So thank you so much for watching today and tuning in to the Melissa Killeleagh Show. We'll see you again next month.